कुमार स्वामी नायक है गोंगो लिबू लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
In the news tonight, the worst is yet to come. Fijians advised to prepare accordingly. And heavy rain causes widespread flooding.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Edwin Nana.
Pulovnaka, Fiji, the weather will get even worse than what we've experienced in the last 24 hours. Rain and strong winds are expected to get worse as we head into the weekend. Acting Director Fiji Meteorological Services Terry Atalifo says they still anticipate TD05F will develop into a Category 1 cyclone by tomorrow morning.
The path it's taking is crossing over Mamanutha group by tomorrow morning, and then it's going to cross just to the southwest of Viti level by later tomorrow afternoon, and also just to the northeast of Kandavu, making its way further south.
And Felipe Naikaso is standing by live with the Acting Director for Meteorology. Felipe, how will the weather develop in the next day or so?
Yes, Ed, well, the weather that we are experiencing will get worse in the next 24 to 48 hours, as we are not experiencing TD05F, but just a trough that's hovering around us. But I have with me here the Acting Director for Fiji Met, Mr. Terry Atalifo, who will explain more just in relation to this. Mr. Atalifo, what can we expect in the next few hours, especially with TD05F moving closer to the group?
Thank you, Felipe. So, we expect heavy rain to become more frequent as the low pressure system gets closer to us. We also anticipate flooding of low-lying areas, including landslides. So the risk of flooding and landslides are quite high come the next few days. We also anticipate the sea flooding due to high waves. So these are the risks that we are looking at in the next few days.
In terms of rainfall, you recorded a significant amount of rainfall over the past 24 hours. What can we expect from TD05F?
Thank you. Yes, we've recorded a lot of rainfall around the country in the last 24 hours. And we also anticipate more rainfall as the system draws closer to us. So we're looking at rainfalls about 150 to 300 millimeters in the 24-hour period as the system moves closer to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atalifo.
Vinaka.
Prime Minister Voring Bainimarama has urged Fijians not to take storms lightly. Bainimarama says Fijians need to prepare now, as in previous years. It's the storms we don't expect that can strike the hardest. Kritika Kumar reports.
The Prime Minister is calling on Fijians to take precautionary measures to ensure safety.
Prepare as you always would. Shutter your homes, move to higher ground, store water, keep a 48-hour emergency kit on hand, and make sure you know where your nearest evacuation center is located.
The Prime Minister has urged Fijians to stay out of flooded waters. Bainimarama says a very wet weekend can be expected.
Crossings and roadways are already becoming flooded. Again, I urge everyone to stay out of floodwaters. I'll say it 100 times more if I need to. Stay out. These waters can kill.
He adds the authorities are now preparing for the storm's arrival. Bainimarama says due to heavy rain, landslips can happen. Therefore, Fijians need to be cautious. Fiji Roads Authority Acting Chief Executive Kamal Prasad says, as part of emergency procedures, contractors have halted all TC Yasa rehabilitation work.
We'll let the weather pass, and then we'll recommence after the assessment after this depression.
Prasad says many low-lying areas and low-level crossings are underwater. He adds their teams are on the ground. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
The Fiji Navy is calling on Fijians to refrain from sailing out to sea. This comes after a rescue mission had to be mounted in coordination with police to rescue 5 people in Tavua last night. Kelly Vadala reports there are worries about those who are still missing since yesterday.
Emergency crews have been searching for 4 people, 2 in Dikumbiavano level and 2 women who were reported missing in Watuwanga, Suva.
With the downpour of rain, there is a likelihood that you would think that you would like to go to sea or out in the river, but please adhere to the weather warnings that has been advised through the radio and through the weather office. These are not normal times.
Navy Commander Captain Humphrey Tawake says rescue missions put the lives of his crew in danger as well.
A mishap happens, then you're forcing us to do things that poses risk again to us. Although we do not know the weather is what type of weather patterns out there that we're able to mitigate it or not.
NDMO Director Vasili Soko says people need to start taking responsibility of their lives during this difficult period.
We are again reminding the public that warnings are issued for a reason. Please help us and adhere to these warnings.
The Fiji Navy says it will assist the National Disaster Management Office when the need arises, especially with search and rescue missions. Kelly Vadala, FBC News.
And just a quick update on that search and rescue mission. Authorities have for the time being suspended the search due to bad weather. Villagers on the lower end of Namotomoto in Nandi are bracing for the worst in terms of flooding. With a few homes situated beside the Nandi River, families have already moved belongings to higher ground. Philippa Naikaso reports.
It's a familiar scenario for these villagers beside the Nandi River who are keeping close tabs on the rising waters.
Since this morning, we've been putting our stuffs up, packing them up and trying to put them higher. And our kids have gone to a safe place.
About 15 homes are situated just on the river bank, and most have evacuated the elderly and children to higher ground.
The advice has been given since yesterday, and even this morning I went to their homes to tell them that they better move now since it's daylight.
DISMEC teams were also present in the village, assisting families move safely before nightfall. The Turangni Koro says other families have also opened their homes to those who will need shelter.
Even though we are used to this, I keep telling the villagers that they need to be proactive and not to get caught off guard.
When the warning was given, we got ready, and since yesterday, we had prepared our clothes, food and water.
Nandi town also closed early today following widespread flooding. The Nandi Back Road, the Nandi bus stand and Gelelo were a few areas affected. Philippa Naikaso, FBC News.
More roads and crossings in the Northern Division were closed off today as a result of washouts and flooding caused by heavy rain. Bus companies reduced their services and market vendors and businesses closed up early as no one wanted to get caught up in the flooding which has been experienced in Vanuatu for the past couple of days. Eleanor Turangaivu has more.
Bus services from Lembasa town have been reduced from today due to the current weather situation, which has caused flooding of most roads. Services will be fully restored once the weather clears.
I used to go by bus every day, and today I have to go by taxi because no bus services today and tomorrow.
Market vendors and businesses in town also closed up early today due to a lack of customers and the current weather situation with more rain predicted.
Closing down because we obviously because of the hurricane. So we giving advice to each and everyone to be prepared for that.
In the low-lying areas, the story is basically the same. Bridges and crossings flooded and the roads closed. The Nakama crossing underwater since yesterday with a big tree swept by the waters resting on the crossing. At Navakuru crossing, the waters were too strong for vehicles and public alike to cross. At Ngalo village in Namoli, the crossing has been washed out by the flood waters.
It's been 2 weeks since the crossing was fixed. Now it's been washed away again.
2 hours after we left Korotari Bridge, we came back to this. The river rising quickly, threatening to flood nearby cane fields and plantations.
Every time there is heavy rainfall, the bridge gets flooded and then it floods all the cane fields. There are 2 rivers that meet at this river. That's why it gets flooded a lot.
Going into the weekend, weekend, the northerners can expect more flooding. The flash flood warning is still in place for all low-lying areas and areas adjacent to and downstream from the Ngawa River. The flood warning is still in place for all areas from Nambowalu to Lambasa, Nambowalu to Kumbulau, Dawara to Nambalembale village, from Nambalembale village to Sabu Sabu, and along the Natewa West Coast Road, from Sabu Sabu to Natewa and Tunuloa, Sangani and Koralau to Lambasa. Eleanor Turangaibiu, FBC News.
Dozens of homes in Nailanga Mba were severely affected by floodwaters, and residents are now preparing for the worst. Most residents struggled to save their belongings as heavy rain continued throughout the day, leaving access roads underwater and inaccessible. Kelly Vadala reports families were caught off guard despite warnings from authorities.
Families woke up to flood waters entering their homes following a night of heavy rain.
It was too late to save majority of our belongings because it kept raining the whole night into this morning, so there is not much that can be done. All we care about now is our safety and getting evacuated from here.
47-year-old Litian Baramoa says along with the persistent heavy rain, strong wind picked up around midday, prompting residents to put up shutters and seek shelter at available evacuation centers.
We can't take any risk. We saw what Tisiasa did to people in Vanua Levu. I'm worried about my kids, so whenever the rain stopped, that's our cue to move out, even if it's a short distance.
Servaya Tuwai says the Nailanga community is working together to ensure no one is left behind.
Homes have flooded, most of our vegetations are underwater. There is no electricity supply. There's little water coming from the taps, so we can't prepare well. Our village headman has called on everyone to move as soon as floodwaters started affecting us.
The majority of Nailanga residents have moved to a nearby evacuation center before nightfall. Kelly Vadala, FBC News.
Residents in Singatoka Town and Valley Road areas also experienced flooding. Yavolu villager Losana Raindaveta told FBC News that the water level started rising at midday and parts of their village, including the Loanga area and nearby settlements, were flooded. Josiah Nanunga reports.
This was the scenario at the lower end of Singatoka Town area this afternoon, where residents and nearby villages are wading through flooded waters, trying to move to safe locations.
After this there is spots along the Singatoka River that continues to rise. Heavy rain might be expected tonight and can further increase the water level to a critical stage and might burst its bank.
Raindaveta adds some of these residents started moving at around midday after noticing the rapid increase in water level.
Villagers in low elevation areas have put their belongings at the rooftop, and some that are handy who took it with them to relatives' place at higher grounds.
Nawamangi villager Taina Kadimbale says they anticipate heavy rain to continue, which may bring severe flooding.
Now we are experiencing dark clouds. Heavy rain might be expected tonight as per weather office advice, and this might further increase water level at the Singatoka River to a critical stage, to an extent bursting its bank.
Relevant authorities are urging residents in low-lying areas within the vicinity of Singatoka and Tuba River to take precautionary measures, with heavy rain expected to continue throughout the night. Josiah Nanunga, FBC News.
On to other news briefly. The Attorney General has labelled the abrupt and arbitrary decision to suspend certain topper students from their scholarship as bordering on academic sabotage. Aya Syed Qayyum says the review revealed a lack of transparency for students and poor and inconsistent implementation of government's objectives were the root of the problem. Syed Qayyum says the plan is to reinstate topper students who were suspended in 2020 without any personal notification.
TSLB's management was treating university students like they were in daycare with no genuine consultation or consistent communication. And our toppers deserved a far higher level of professionalism from the TSLB management.
Up ahead, Fijians prepare for more flooding. And no electricity in Ba, Tavua and Rakiraki.
मैं तो दिल्ली में रहता हूँ और रेडियो फीजी रोज सुनता हूँ।
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन।
Welcome back. 20 cases of leptospirosis, typhoid, dengue fever and diarrhea have been reported in the Northern Division. National Disaster Management Office Director Vasiti Soko says the update was provided during an emergency committee meeting with stakeholders. Lina Rees has more.
The NDMO director is urging residents in affected areas to store water and food and to practice good hygiene.
And a total of 20 cases of LPDD has been reported in the Northern Division. While the prevailing condition is anticipated to worsen in the coming days, it is critical that we use this time to prepare our families, our loved ones, and especially to those who are more vulnerable.
Health Minister Dr. Efreme Wanganembete says the increasing number of LTDD cases is a worry.
It is a worry when when you still have the climate changes happening in terms of the high water table, the flooding. So that's why the messages keeps on going around, making sure that we are being very protected.
As a precautionary measure, the NDMO has highlighted that a total of 82 tents that were being used as temporary classrooms have been dismantled from 26 schools in the Northern Division. Lina Rees, FBC News.
And Lina Rees is standing by live. Lina, how are authorities preparing tonight?
Now, with rain being the major concern with this weather system, the NDMO is calling on Fijians living in flood-prone areas to move to safety or higher ground while there is still time. There have also been reports received of people still crossing flooded areas and children playing in floodwaters. Authorities cannot stress enough for Fijians to refrain from this. Also, marine vessels have been, their services have been suspended as per the instructions that have been given by the Maritime Safety Authority of Fiji. And with the increase in leptospirosis, typhoid, dengue fever and diarrhea cases, authorities are stressing the need to boil all drinking water and also the need to practice safe hygiene. Edwin.
Nakalina. Families in Deepwater Korovo were monitoring the water levels in the Korovo River earlier today as it continued to rise. Resident Mosese Dhambe says he would move his family to the nearest evacuation center at Korovo. Sainia Nimboila reports.
It's slowly rising as Korovo residents experience continuous rain since last night until midday today.
We always monitor the water levels here, and when we see that it is unsafe, we move to the nearest evacuation center, and that is Korovo Primary School just across the road. We have already packed our stuff and we are ready to go if it continues to rain.
In Korovo town, a number of stores are being closed as a precautionary measure. Market vendor Merseni Reseka is selling her produce to buy essential items for her family.
I came to buy some chilies, some pumpkin and other produce, to buy some canned food items, batteries and some candles for my family as we prepare for the cyclone.
Serebi Resunke says Nayan supermarket where he works prepared in advance to meet the needs of local residents.
We were open early this morning as we prepare for the customers who will be doing their shopping as they prepare for the impending cyclone. We will close at 8 at night to accommodate those that will need to do their last-minute shopping.
Korovo town and its surrounding areas were severely affected by tropical cyclone Winston, and with the current weather predictions, many are preparing for the worst. Sainia Nimboila, FBC News.
People living in squatter settlements have learnt from the past, ensuring their belongings are secured well in advance. Many of the residents of Veiraisi and River Road settlements in Nasinu were out early today to buy essentials. Koroi Tandulala reports.
Floodwaters entered some of these compounds in the Veiraisi settlement due to continuous heavy downpour.
This place easily gets flooded most of the time. Rubbish blocks the drain nearby. For now, we're staying put, but we'll move as soon as the need arises.
Everyone here knows that this is a flood-prone area and people are aware of their nearest evacuation centers. We've been making urgent preparation, especially food items and water.
residents are taking necessary precautions given the current weather situation. This river that runs right beside this settlement poses a major risk during heavy downpour as water overflows, causing flooding. These residents are not taking things lightly as they are preparing to evacuate before high tide.
At the moment, if the flooding starts, then we'll have to move to a place where we are secured because the water level is like up to the steps sometimes. So we got kids now. So it's better we can take precautions before anything happens.
The floodwater came all the way up last night during heavy rain, and it has been subsiding since. We are anticipating more flood when the tide comes in again with the weather to worsen. As the weather is expected to worsen, these residents are prioritizing their safety over anything else. Coraitan Tulala, FBC News.
It was a different story in informal settlements around Suva, as some seem to have a relaxed attitude about the impending cyclone. Many of these sites are prone to flooding and have been inundated by floodwaters during heavy rain in the past. Apanisa Wangaidandavu visited some of the settlements in Suva today and reports that residents are awaiting more weather updates.
Despite heavy rain and flash flooding last night, residents of the Muslim League settlement in Namboa say they will decide later if they need to move.
Where I live, actually, I don't, but the other people who are living near to the creek, they do move around. They go to evacuation centers.
Another resident, Melaya Tikundundua, says for the last 30 years, she has never evacuated during flooding or cyclones.
I live here with my mom and we are not moving anywhere. That's what we did in the past 30 years. Before, others would come and stay in our house, but this time they choose to go to the evacuation center.
People in this settlement seem very relaxed despite weather warnings. Children are also continuing with their daily routine and are playing outside in the rain.
Here in Waila, we are used to flooding. Even though it's raining, it will only flood when the tide is high. Also, only if floodwaters messes a house, then we know it's a serious, but right now, no.
The next few hours are critical for those living in low-lying communities. The message from authorities is to move while you still can to avoid unnecessary panic. Apinisong Gardobu, FBC News.
Fijians rushed to supermarkets to stock up on emergency supplies as the weather conditions worsened. FBC News visited shop owners and customers in Nosori town where people were buying essentials. Venina Rakautonga reports.
Having learned from previous cyclones, Fijians seem to respond quicker today, taking precautionary measures.
We are coming right now to do our shopping before it's too late. Even when we are here early, the town is all crowded up.
I'm preparing for the cyclone. I'm buying all the things so that it won't be hard for me.
As a wheelbarrow boy, I'm just here to collect some quick money so I may be able to buy the necessary stuff before the cyclone.
Tara's supermarket director Mahendra Patel says there had also been signs of panic buying.
Everything is in stock and people are buying, but I still think that don't spend money on unnecessary items. The stock will be kept going.
Apart from the demand for groceries, people in Nausori are also stocking up on essential items needed during a cyclone. Shop owner Vipul Soni says after Tisiasa, they realized there was a demand for emergency electrical items.
The big demand is there, but not very much demand because already we have one cyclone already. So already they have in stock, but if they don't have the stock, they can just come and buy from us.
Shops in Nosori remained open for normal business today, but were prepared for the impending cyclone. Venina Rakautonga, FBC News.
Energy Fiji Limited has confirmed there will be power supply disruptions throughout Mba, Tavwa and Rakiraki over the next 2 days. This is caused by power poles being washed away by floodwaters. EFL Chief Executive Hasmukh Patel says they suspect that a vault line from Vunda to Mba might be damaged as a result of the heavy rain. He says it's difficult to repair the lines right now because of the bad weather.
So we apologize for the inconvenience, but EFL will try its best to make sure we start identifying the problems and attending to them as soon as the weather clears.
And time to turn to business now with Whitney.
Thanks, Edwin. Coming up in business tonight, new fuel price in effect next month, and vaccination rollout programs to assist economic recoveries. Stay with us.
हमारे सामने नाइक है गोंगो लिबू लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे।
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन।
The fuel and liquefied petroleum gas prices will change from February 1st. The price of motor spirit will increase by 5 cents and will cost $1.99 per litre. The price of premix will increase by 4 cents and will cost $1.61 per litre. There is no change in the price of kerosene. Diesel prices increased by 7 cents and will now cost $1.68 per litre. The gas price will also change. The 4.5 kg cylinder will cost $12.52, a decrease of 5 cents. A 12 kg cylinder will cost $33.39, a decrease of 14 cents, while the price of a 13 kg cylinder will decrease by 15 cents and cost $36.17. The price of bulk gas remains the same at $2.33 per kg. The auto gas remains the same at $1.56 per litre. General Motors has set a goal to sell all its new cars, SUVs and light pickup trucks with zero tailpipe emissions by 2035. This is a dramatic shift by the largest U.S. automaker away from gasoline and diesel engines.
In a dramatic shift, the largest U.S. automaker Thursday set an ambitious public goal to end the sale of gasoline and diesel-powered cars, SUVs, and light-duty trucks by the year 2035. General Motors also pledged to become carbon neutral by 2040. The news comes just over a week after President Joe Biden took office, promising to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and replace hundreds of thousands of government vehicles with electric models.
All-electric vehicle future.
GM Chief Executive Mary Barra has aggressively pushed the company to embrace electric vehicles, saying in a statement the automaker had worked with the Environmental Defense Fund to, quote, develop a shared vision of an all-electric future.
Making our EV future something people race toward.
GM has a long way to go. It sold 2.5 million vehicles in the United States last year, only about 20,000 of which were EVs. But GM said in November it was investing $27 billion in electric and autonomous vehicles over the next 5 years, up from $20 billion in earlier plans. GM shares surged on the news as much as 7%, but gave back some of those gains by day's end.
We now join Sharon from HFC Bank with the latest from the money market.
Good evening. The Aussie and Kiwi dollars took a recess today after recovering from a sickening slide the previous session, although both are nursing losses for the week. The Aussie dollar was partly undermined by a sharp fall in prices for iron ore, which is their biggest export earner, as Beijing talked about limiting steel production this year. The Aussie dollar also faces domestic risks next week when the Reserve Bank of Australia holds its first policy meeting of the year, with most analysts tipping it will recommit to keeping rates at record lows for 3 more years. Meanwhile, the US dollar remained on the back foot today as an improvement in risk appetite, so investors take their chances on riskier currencies. And that's all from your HFC Bank for this week. Pinak.
Here are the local exchange rates as set early this morning. It was a mixed day for the Fiji dollar as it gained against the US greenback, PNG Kina, Euro and the Japanese yen. The Sangamoli was down versus our 2 major trading partners, the Aussie and Kiwi dollars, as well as the Chinese yuan. The commodities market was mixed. Oil prices were down slightly but remained above $52 a barrel. Gold rose a few dollars, closing at $1,843 per ounce, and silver closed up at $25.26 an ounce. The recovery trajectory of 2021 seems slightly better than expected, says Reserve Bank Governor Arif Ali. Ali says this is due to the COVID-19 vaccination programs in several countries around the world, while most sectors, together with consumption and investment activities, registered double-digit contractions in 2020. This was mitigated by early containment of infections locally and of financial assistance to affected individuals and households. He adds the return of economic activity recovery to pre-pandemic levels will be long and uncertain given the extended closure of international borders. However, the recent vaccine rollouts in major tourism source markets of Australia and New Zealand are pluses of positivity. Based on vaccination and the possible international travel in the second half of the year, the economy is anticipated to register positive growth in 2021. And that's it from Business Tonight. We now join Jamie with the latest in sports.
Thank you and good evening. Ahead in sports, IOC reassurance motivates athletes. And Fiji FA remains positive about hosting international tournament. This and more coming up.
हमारे सामने नाइक है गोंगवा लिबू लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में
Being in the same pool as the National Sevens team in the Mobile Uprising Sevens is not a deterrent for Vayasana providers. The Lami-based club is one of the grassroots teams that will feature in next weekend's tournament, pooled with Fiji, Uprising and Crosser Victory. Team manager Beniamino Kakaivalu says they are thankful for the opportunity to test their skills against the best.
The boys want to show their talent, and being pulled with the sevens teams and the other well-known teams is the only chance for us to do that.
The swimming long course Grand Prix has been postponed. The competition was scheduled to be held tomorrow. However, due to the adverse weather conditions, organizers have postponed the event. Fiji Swimming Operations Manager Trisha Chia has confirmed the competition will now be held next weekend. The Fiji Football Association is keeping its fingers crossed it'll host the FIFA World Cup qualifying tournament. Despite all the challenges, the Fiji FA is confident Fiji is capable of meeting all the necessary requirements. Aquila with the story.
During these challenging times, hosting an international sporting event is rare, but Fiji has a few opportunities and one of them is football.
We have applied for the FIFA Club World Cup qualifying. Fiji and New Zealand are the two countries that have been shortlisted, and our CEO will be working with the Ministry of Sports and also with the Ministry of Health and everything and the government to see how Fiji can host it.
If the bid is successful, then the economic effect will be huge.
This will be good for the economy because there will be all 11 countries coming here if we win the bid, and where we can provide the quarantine facilities and everything and secured bubble, so that matches can be held. And this is something that will be in these trying times a sports tourism type of income generation for the country.
While Fiji awaits the bid decision, local districts have 2 days to secure the services of overseas players, but they have to follow the proper process.
But if they are playing as a semi-pro and for signing a contract, then of course they'll need to go through the process of getting a work permit.
The preseason transfer window ends on Sunday, but so far only 4 players have been officially released to join new districts. Aquila Dama, FBC Sports.
That's it from Sports Tonight in New Media. Facebook overruled by Oversight Board on first cases. Details coming up.
हमारे सामने नाइक है गोंगवा लिबू लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन
The potential remains high for tropical depression TD05F to turn into a tropical cyclone early tomorrow. Meanwhile, much of Fiji saw very heavy rain today. Rain began in the morning in the west, causing flooding. Eastwards from Pacific Harbour to Suva, there were some heavy showers. In the north, very heavy rain and flooding reported in a number of areas. At sea, a gale warning is in force for most of Fiji, generating extremely rough seas. Turning to the tides, the next low tide is at 1:33 a.m., followed by high tide at 7:47 tomorrow morning. Sunrise is at 5:51. The forecast for tomorrow is for heavy rain over most of the group and the probability that TD05F will be declared a tropical cyclone. Looking ahead to Sunday, more severe stormy weather. In Fijian Pulse, we ask, how have you prepared for the bad weather?
At the moment, we are stocking up on candles, tin foods and other essential items as we prepare for the impending cyclone.
So for me, I'll just stay at work, and for my family back home, they are preparing, they are putting up shutters and stocking up on essential food items.
Our shutters were already up from the last cyclone, and all we're doing right now is storing water.
Despite being at work, I always ensure that those at home are well prepared and also safe.
Recapping our main stories, the worst is yet to come in terms of the bad weather. Fijians advised to prepare accordingly, and heavy rain causes widespread flooding. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. To our poll question, this week we are asking, are Fijians becoming complacent about diabetic lifestyles? Visit our FBC News website to answer. And on to our shot of the day, people in the Northern Division trying to cross a flooded crossing captured by Eleanor Turangai View. You can send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj or share it with us via our various social media accounts including Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. That's your news this evening. I'll be back again next week. Until then, stay safe. Modemanda.
कुमार सानी नायक है गोंगवा लिबू लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे।
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन।